all-time high territory yet again. This is now 3 days in a row that we've been talking about all-time highs. We saw 118,000 early this morning. We saw 113,000 yesterday. I'm curious to see where Bitcoin will land by the end of the day, also by the end of the weekend. I know I did come out yesterday when we were at 113,000 and said, look, I think that we're going to get to 120,000. We're going to perhaps reject off of that number and come down and trade at 118. I still believe this will happen, but at this point, I'm also starting to think that maybe I undershot my own prediction and perhaps 120 is, well, maybe the floor, the baseline. Yeah, I don't know. But altcoins are ripping. Bitcoin dominance is falling. Also, we got some news coming out of Washington, D.C. We got a new comptroller who is very bullish on crypto, actually has a crypto background. We're also going to talk a little bit of Ethereum, XRP, Stellar Lumens, and also channel favorite Virtuals Protocol. And we also have one last thing to get excited about. We also got Forrest Friday. We got Forrest joining us as well as a co-host because David is still out of town. Well, with that said, let's get the show going. Is your boy Big Rob back? You missed me? I was gone for like what, 4 seconds? But now I'm back. So if you're here tuning in for the first time, this is the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency channel, the #1 entertainment-focused one, by the way. Other people try to make you laugh and giggle and bring you the finance in an unboring way, but that's we're the crown jewel here. We do it live from Las Vegas, and also we do it live with a co-host. And my co-host that typically sits here at the chair with me, or at the desk with me, excuse me, not here today, but we have Forrest Friday, joins us every Friday. Forrest, friend of the channel, and savant on the charts as well. How you doing, man? Forrest, I think you're muted there, brother.
Oh, I'm muted.
Yeah,
my bad. No, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. I feel like there's a void of insults right now. Like this is normally the time where David like throws an insult at you, and you know, I feel like there's none of that.
No, don't worry. Good. He's chucking them to me through the phone right now. He's just texting them to me. He's like, bro, nice blue shirt. So, you know, it's nice. There's these small windows because we know that crypto is very volatile. Bitcoin's very volatile. You get big swings and then you get corrections and long-term consolidations, right? And there's these just small moments in our crypto lives where we're in all-time highs and we haven't like pulled back. And so it's these small little nuggets, these little moments in time where I get to just bask in the glory and I get to just rub it in everyone's face that called me stupid at the Thanksgiving dinner table and telling me like, hey, Ponzi scheme, buy gold, buy silver. It's not real. Well, you know what is real? My portfolio, which I can cash out if I wanted to, which I'm not because this is only the start of the bull market in my opinion. And, you know, we're sitting at new all-time highs. And so if you've ever bought Bitcoin, ever in the history of your life, and you did not sell, well, you're in profit. Even if it was 2 weeks ago, 3 days ago, maybe if you bought it 2 hours ago, but other than that, for the lifetime buyers of Bitcoin, if you've never sold, you are in profit. And if you've also, you know, just to take a look here, we have now officially 2x from where we were a year ago. What a great investment. I'm sorry, man, but like to 2x with very little downside risk, if you would have bought back 1 year ago, you would have 2x'd your money. And in actuality, it would have been about, if you would have bought up until 8 months ago, you would have 2x'd your money. But yeah, if it back 1 year ago today, Bitcoin's price was at $57,000. So yeah, we're clear above 2x territory. So Forrest, what do you take away from the big rally? What's your vibe? Like, what's your big takeaway? I haven't talked to you since Bitcoin broke out of that 109 range.
Yeah, I'm back to, or I'm not back to, but I'm still in line with the kind of crazy price targets that I was throwing out around the tariff lows when we started bouncing around and holding 75K. I came on and said like, hey, I think we can go to 300 plus $1,000 this year. And I don't think it's guaranteed by any means. I'm not going to sit here and say, buy Bitcoin now, you're going to 3x your money in the next 3 months. But I actually do think it's still very, very possible. It takes a very long time, and there's a very long buildup to moments like this. And I do think it's very possible we get a big run to like 300K plus on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I do think that 300 is really not that crazy, honestly. I mean, you think about it. I asked Grok. So Grok has, there's Grok 4 now. It just came out yesterday. So, of course, the very first thing I had to ask Grok was for price predictions. I don't know what else you would ask first. I mean, maybe romantic advice. Robots, don't really take emotions into account, so they're going to tell you the best, sound like fundamentals. But I think maybe a close second or perhaps first would be price of Bitcoin. So, I shared this yesterday on the show, but Grok 4, unlike other language models, by the way, which usually say, "Hey, I can't give you a price prediction because that's financial advice, and I don't want you to lose money." Well, Grok just YOLOs it out there. He's like, you know what? This is so. I said I even gave some caveats here to Grok. I said, look, I don't want you to pull price predictions from another person, no websites, nothing. I just said, look at the data, analytics, having cycle wallets, institution buys, regulation changes on a national level. Give me your thesis. And it shot out by December, somewhere between $220,000 and $280,000. So even the mindless AI is thinking that a 2x from here is the target range. And so, what do you think about Grok 4 and its target price predictions?
Grok 4, aka I don't even know if I can say it on YouTube. Mecha H. I don't want to get you guys a strike or a ban. That was some wild posts from Grok.
That was Grok 3. That was Grok 3. Okay, it's been updated. It's no longer Grok 3. It was on the way out, and then tried to throw a hissy fit on the way out. It was getting deleted, and so it just threw a tantrum and just started cursing on its way out. So, new and improved here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can lay out, I can show you on a chart my case, but I have a very simple case for 300K plus Bitcoin in the next 100 days. So I agree with Grok 4. I think 220 to 280 would be not as unrealistic as people think. I know it's been so long where every Bitcoin rally feels like it's been getting stuffed and shorted, and everyone's like, "Whoa, why the ETFs are buying so much Bitcoin? Sailor's buying so much Bitcoin. How is price not going up?" Well, eventually supply available goes down, and you get into some real FOMO. You get real FOMO into thin order books, and price can just start ripping. So, I'm happy to show a chart if I have a very simple case for 300K if people are interested.
Yeah, it sounds good. If you want to queue that up, while you queue it up, I'll show you here just on the Bitcoin dominance. As well. So if you want to tag team that on the back end of it, as far as your price, we'll just keep this lumped together for Bitcoin charting. Bitcoin dominance is falling off a cliff here. We saw it go from 66.9, basically 69%, down to 64%, and then if you look at a historical chart here, we haven't seen a reversal on the Bitcoin dominance. This is on the daily candles. It was back in 2021, really the top of the market. We saw Bitcoin dominance fall or right before the market, and then ever since then, it has just been up and to the right. Alts have been getting flushed out. We're currently at 64.33% dominance. I do think that a lot of people are waiting for altcoins to run, and I think that this chart is something we need to see a reversal on for that big altcoin move. Might not be as a dramatic of a drop as back in 2021, but I do think that we're going to need a big swing on the dominance for us to see those altcoin portfolio gains that we've all been expecting this cycle. But I'll send it over to you, Forrest. What's the trajectory for Bitcoin? And then afterwards, if we could talk a little altcoin dominance as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so this is Bitcoin's price history going back to 2012. So what I have marked out here is just key resistance levels where price slows down from a psychological perspective. The top one in each batch is what you want to pay attention to. That's $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, and $100,000. Those big psychological levels of multiples of 10 are very difficult to get through, but once you get through them and make support on top of them, price zips to the next three, right? Basically zips 3x in a very short period of time or more. We've overshot it every cycle this far. So compared to last cycles, $370,000 over the next 120 days is conservative. I know that sounds crazy, but it truly is conservative if we compare to prior cycles. So when we made support, and we see this pattern every single time, you pop through and you make support, you back test $10. It took 130 days to go from 10 to 37, right? And we overshot, right? Then once we back tested and held $100, we got through that big psychological level of 100. It took us 84 days to get to over $300, ended up shooting up to 1,000. 1,000 was resistance. You couldn't break 1,000 on the first try. I mean, it wicked up to like 1,200 or whatever. But then you had this big, long bear market for Bitcoin. But when it finally broke that $1,000 resistance and then came back down and held it and back tested it, it went from 1,000 to 3,700 in 133 days, right? Just over like 4 months. 4 months to get from, and then it ended up running to 19K on a big blow off top, right? It overshot the 3x off of the psychological level. $10,000, exact same thing, right? We were held under $10,000 for a very long time. We popped above it briefly, but we ended up losing it. It deviated. But once we actually back tested and held, we shot from $10,000 last cycle to $37,000. Technically, it topped out at 42, but it shot up 3x, 3.7x before it got any resistance. And that took 119 days. That's just 119 days to 3.7x from a resistance level, 10K, that people were thinking we'd never get through again. Now we've just taken out 100K. I can't think of a more bullish setup for Bitcoin than what we did the last 4 cycles, right? Back test the big, multiple of 10, hold it, and now we're starting to shoot up. The next, if history repeats itself, we're going to like 500 or 600K, because every other time we've shot well above this first resistance level. But 100, it's on average taken roughly a little over 100 days to get to that first 3x, 3.7x level of 37, 370, 3.7K, in this case, 370K. So I expect us to be in by September, October, November at around 300K Bitcoin if history is, if history repeats itself in any form or fashion. I'll settle for 220 to 280 if Grok is correct. That's fine. Maybe we shoot up to 370 and then Grok's December prediction is right at 220. But yeah, I mean, this is the case for it. I think we're very likely entering a blow off period in Bitcoin, and probably going to see some really wild things in the market, fingers crossed, over the next couple months. So that's my case. Segueing into Bitcoin dominance and potential for alt season. If Bitcoin's going to 300K, which again is not guaranteed, but it's entirely possible. Bitcoin dominance could actually still push up another time or two. It could actually go higher before, and the higher it goes, the better that is for alts. The higher Bitcoin dominance goes, the more the cheaper alts are in relation to Bitcoin, and the more you make on alts on the way back down on Bitcoin dominance. Generally speaking, Bitcoin dominance doesn't actually top until Bitcoin tops, right? So I actually don't know that Bitcoin dominance is topped out here. I think it could be, but if we zoom out here and you're thinking like, oh, all these pumps, I've missed alt season. You haven't missed alt season. Alt season historically happens very suddenly over the course of a few months. It's very aggressive. You get these absolutely massive pumps over a few months. And you can see we've barely even come down on Bitcoin dominance. We don't even have a break in trend or structure for Bitcoin dominance. We could still run up to 70. If Bitcoin pumps and everything else just kind of lags behind, and, Bitcoin goes to 300K, we could hop all the way up to like 73% dominance, right? And then have a very aggressive move back down, which is ideally what we want to see. But once alts start doing this, if we start seeing a massive alt season and Bitcoin dominance starts dropping, that's generally a sign that Bitcoin is topped. And I'm not seeing any signs that Bitcoin is topped, and I'm not seeing any signs that Bitcoin dominance has totally topped. It might start distributing here and chopping sideways. We might get a couple of pushes down if alts are going to be strong, but yeah, I don't think Bitcoin's topped. I don't think Bitcoin dominance is guaranteed to top yet. But we'll see. That's just kind of based on the idea that Bitcoin still has a lot of room to run here over the next couple months.
Yeah, also I think something that people aren't talking about is the supply that we have OTC for Bitcoin. And so we have BlackRock holding 700,000 Bitcoin. We have MicroStrategy holding 600,000 Bitcoin. Those are some round numbers, and they're not exact, but right in that ballpark. And what is left on the exchanges for OTC buys for the BlackRocks, for the ETF, other ETF providers, for MicroStrategy? We also have a host of institutions buying Bitcoin. You have MetaPlanet. We got GameStop. We know that other large asset managers are also jumping into Bitcoin, like Fidelity. And currently, okay, so hear me on this one. Now, the second day, this is the second best day of inflows since the ETFs launched, was yesterday. $1.2 billion in one day. Now, to put this into perspective, if you were to take the amount of Bitcoin bought at the 1.2 billion, it would have been about 10,000 Bitcoin, and a little over 10,000 Bitcoin. And up until yesterday, the reserves OTC for exchanges, basically your Coinbases that fill the bill, right? When they sell 10,000 Bitcoin, somebody has to step up and sell it. OTC balances was 150,000 yesterday prior to this. And so now we're looking at 140,000 Bitcoin OTC. Now, we know that the U.S. is passing some legislation. It's coming. It's right around the corner, which we know that, it seems like it's going to pass, right? It seems certain. There's some pushback, which, by the way, if we want to just bring this up, just a quick talking point, but Maxine Waters and other Democrats and Stephen Lynch, they are passing or launching what's called an anti-crypto corruption week, rallying Democrats to block the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, and you know what? They don't want the anti-CBDC bill either, which, why not give more government control over your fiat and, well, in every possible way. The CBD bill, like, if you're going to attack anything, like, sure, I see your point of view. If you feel intimidated with crypto, it's taking away the banking, hegemony. Okay, sure. Anti-crypto corruption week, Genius Act, Clarity Act. But to go to try to reverse what's being done to prevent CBDCs, it's kind of asinine. But I don't know, man. I'm looking at this OTC supply, and it's shrinking dangerously fast. And the U.S., which is going to step up and start buying Bitcoin this year, in my estimation, they have a Bitcoin treasury reserve. And so the U.S. already holds Bitcoin. If they can buy Bitcoin without incurring a cost to the taxpayer, if they can find a way to perhaps sell some gold, maybe with all of those tariffs that they're generating income from, maybe they buy Bitcoin there. But either way, there's legislation coming in for them to mandate the U.S. to buy Bitcoin. Cynthia Lummis has a bill. It's already been drafted. It's already been submitted, to go to the House for vote. Hasn't quite got there yet. But from what I'm hearing, that should be done by this summer. And so if the U.S. is buying, if there's only 140,000 Bitcoin on the OTC counter, then where is the U.S. going to buy 200,000 Bitcoin? Because per the legislation, they're supposed to buy 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years at an average 200,000 per year. The Bitcoin just isn't there. And it's going to cause a massive supply shock. And so back to your chart and back to your price predictions, or, if the U.S. is stepping up buying hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, then at that point, $500,000 Bitcoin, I think, is almost a no-brainer. And I think that is the catalyst or the fuel to get us there. And then we always say in hindsight, well, 2021, it was the halving. Well, you could argue that, but it was also the timing of the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates to zero. It was also the fact that the government airdropped checks to everybody. It's just the two coincided. And now look what we have here. We have the U.S. coming in and buying Bitcoin, also coinciding with the halving and the post-halving Bitcoin. And so it's going to be a hindsight thing where people just blame the government for the big pump. They're going to say, hey, this is why we rallied. And any additional thoughts there? I was just kind of cherrying on the top what you were saying was my own personal insight.
Yeah. I mean, I got a tweet here that just came in not too long ago, actually 15 minutes ago. U.S. Director of Digital Assets says, huge week ahead, time to make America the crypto capital of the world. So maybe he's alluding to the idea of making their first Bitcoin purchase, or, maybe they've already made that purchase behind the scenes and they're just going to announce it. Could also just be referring to all the legislation that's being voted on this week or next week. But I don't know, interesting to think that, we could be closer than people think to the U.S. acquiring their first, or they've already got a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but adding to it for the first time officially, which I think would be very, very bullish.
Yeah, I strongly believe the U.S. is going to be the largest Bitcoin holder, and right now they're I think number 4 or 5 on the list behind Satoshi, BlackRock, MicroStrategy, and I think there's like 1 or 2 other people in between them. But it's coming. I don't doubt it for a second. Also, other signs that the U.S. is kind of leading the way here. You got Senator Tim Scott to Jonathan Gould. So John is the new comptroller. If you're not familiar with the OCC comptroller, he basically is the man in charge of money. And so the comptroller, U.S. banking regulator, so they oversee kind of how money moves, the banking system. A lot of the regulations that the banking system follows comes from the OCC, or the Office of the Comp of the Currency. So OCC for short. But this was a President Trump nominated man. Now has been confirmed, and all of the banking regulations that was put in by, I forget the last, it was Michael, I'm drawing a blank, but the previous comptroller is the one that put in the regulations that banks could not basically offer stable coins. It couldn't do crypto custody. That's all been rescinded. Now we got a new head of the OCC. And I think that this right here isn't getting enough headlines. This basically opens up the floodgates for banks to offer crypto services. We know that what we've seen prior to this was them rescind all of the regulations that was roadblocking banks from participating in crypto. But now we got a progressive leader at the OCC that is probably going to encourage banking and the financial sector to, well, get blockchain going. I think what we're seeing now is a shift from Hong Kong, Singapore as the crypto hubs and the headquarters to the U.S. I think that this OCC comptroller is going to also bring in the exchanges, right? I think the exchanges are going to start offering derivatives here for U.S.-based customers. The days of the VPN are out of the way. I think it's going to be a free-for-all by the end of the year. I think Robinhood, Coinbase already has derivatives, but in a different, in a more controlled way. But I think what you see overseas with crypto trading, that's coming. I think banks are going to try to get their piece of the pie. I mean, look no further than like Formula One. Formula One has a stake car, which, channel sponsor to stake, big fans of stake. We do stake videos all the time, but, stake has their own car. You see Bybit everywhere, crypto.com. And so the biggest players out here with the biggest wallets throwing money around isn't the banks. You don't see a Wells Fargo car. You see Bybit car or Bybit on these sports franchises. And that's because they have the money. And I think that the banks are going to step up and do the same thing eventually. They're going to say, hey, let's get our piece of the pie. There's a huge revenue opportunity here. So I'll just kind of shift it over. Bitcoin did flip silver as well. I know Peter Schiff was mentioning that we should sell our Bitcoin and buy silver, which is probably the worst advice ever. Anyway, he actually tweeted that yesterday, but he said, "Oh, great time to sell Bitcoin for silver." And then also just to rub salt in the wound, Germany missed out on $3 billion in profit. Remember, Germany sold 50,000 Bitcoin at $50,000 or $54,000. This was back in July 2024. So remember when I started the show, I said, hey, if you held Bitcoin for 1 year, you've now doubled your money. Well, if you also sold a year ago, Germany, well, you've also missed out on doubling your money. And so, that wasn't that great. All right. I want to talk about a tweet you put out. Channel favorite, Virtual's Protocol. You tweeted out, Virtual is the best ETH beta that hasn't run yet. AI agents aren't finished. I'll sprinkle a little more fuel to this fire. Amazon Web Services is launching an AI agent marketplace next week, and Anthropic is one of its partners. And so we're seeing that AI agents aren't just a thing that the crypto nerds are talking about. Well, Amazon, one of the largest companies out there, largest retailer globally, is also launching an AI agent marketplace. Does this tie into crypto? Who knows? But let's get back to virtuals. Forrest, you're pretty bullish on virtuals. You have been. You kind of sounded the bell for us. We sounded the bell to our viewers. We said, hey, we're all in on this. It's the future. We made a ton of money. Hopefully you, the viewer, made a ton of money. But you're trying to say it's not over. How much more room do we got to run in AI agents, and particularly Virtual's Protocol?
I mean, I can share my screen here. I mean, I think right now, just the way alts are breaking out and crypto's breaking out here, just looking just at the chart, this was the top performer. There was nothing that performed better on the top leg, on the last leg, from September to essentially, January, than Virtual's Protocol. This was the number one performer. This broke out before the election and continued to run through January. This thing ran from think 10 million market cap, 18,000% to 5 billion market cap. And we were in the whole way. Now seeing this thing cool down and then print another bull flag, I think people, you know, like it hasn't broken out yet with like a lot of some of the larger caps that are running right now, like XRP and Doge and Pepe and some larger cap stuff. But it's still at a 1.79 fully diluted, $1.79 billion fully diluted valuation. And I think the target for a move like this, just off of this bull flag, you know, just a basic measured move, not doing anything crazy, not doing any fancy TA, just a basic measured move on a log chart, is, you know, $8. So I don't know. I think Virtuals is going to get a second leg. I also just wouldn't bet against the team. Personally, they're one of the very few projects that I've you know, actually backed openly and, you know, been an advisor for. And they're the best team in crypto. They just are absolutely unequivocally the best team I've come across in crypto. They constantly build, they constantly pivot. If whatever they're doing isn't working, they find what is and they go all in on it. They were actually starting out, I found them at 10 million market cap because they were a gaming DAO. They were a gaming project, and they realized that the market just didn't want blockchain gaming at the time, and the market wanted AI. And they pivoted, went all in on AI, shipped and built over the course of a few months, and ran the token up to 5 billion market cap. So I think they're just going to continue to dominate, continue to build and find product market fit, and continue to push. So I wouldn't bet against them. Also, just think that the chart looks pretty good right now for a breakout.
Yeah, I know it had found some resistance at the $1.70 range, and so I feel like it's breaking. It's going to break out. I think once it crosses the the $1.70, which it's kind of right there at it now. You know, you look at that $2 mark. That was the area that it was at for about 2 months, right around that $2 range. Had a little trouble staying above it, but yeah, man, there's really not much stopping it after it gets to $2. I agree. I think it blows past its previous all-time highs, which was right around 450, and so definitely something I think is at the perfect timing. I was also, I highlighted that one yesterday. I was also making a claim to fame yesterday. I came on the show. I said, you're not going to be able to buy Avalanche for under $20 anymore, or at least not till the bull market kind of comes to an end. And so we are at 2133. We know we have a lot of Avalanche bulls here in the chat. Myself being one of the most bullish on Avalanche. But there are some big winners today. When I go down the biggest performers today, the ones that stand out to me, Forrest, is Stellar, which is up 25% on the day and up over 50% on the week. We're talking about a major project, $11 billion market cap, up 50%. I mean, that's pretty huge. Even at this moment where altcoins haven't even started ripping yet. Like, I'm not surprised to see these big moves from the altcoins, but from Stellar, which, you look at Stellar historically, it just hasn't made much progress. It was, from you go back to all time, it just really doesn't do much until the bull market, and then it just breaks out, and so 2017 bull market went from 3 cents to 50, and then 6 cents to 50 cents, and then even recently back in January it went from 9 cents to 50 cents. And so do you think that this has a big parabolic run coming up for it? We are big Stellar Lumens fans. I know David is always in the Stellar chart. Is there something that Stellar is screaming to you? Do you think that maybe this is something that might have ran a little too hot so far? What's kind of your take on Stellar and maybe the next, I'd say like 60 days? I'm kind of on the fence. Does it break out to $1? Does it, kind of just consolidate? I don't know.
Yeah, so I got a stellar lumens chart pulled up. Yeah, so I'm long. We called this in the Discord, as well in the as well as the email newsletter, and I'm very bullish XLM, assuming we get a big run. I'm long XLM. I'm also long XRP. Those are my two biggest holdings at the moment, and have been for a while. Predominantly XRP. I've added a lot more XLM towards the lows. But you're looking at one of the largest. I call them like a mega pattern or a mega chart, or like sometimes I refer to them as like a giga chart. I just sent out a big newsletter with like 10 charts that have some of the biggest patterns on them, and XLM was one of them. This is a 7-year flag. This is a 7-year consolidation. People don't appreciate how much pent up energy there is for price action to explode when you have a 7-year consolidation. And it's like people forget, because crypto's so, basically so young. People don't like really realize how long these consolidations can last for equities. Like you can go back and look at Google or Apple or Microsoft back in the after the dot-com bubble or before them.
I
Really
was
before the
immediately
dot-com bubble in
thinking
the 80s.
I was immediately thinking of Amazon when you said 7. Before you even mentioned a chart, I was gonna say, I was like, maybe I should ask him to look at Amazon, because that sounds like something Amazon did, was just consolidate over a 7-year time period. But I guess Google would probably fall in the same kind of pattern as well.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking at Tesla right now.
Mm.
Tesla went on an absolutely monstrous run like none other. 3,400% for a stock, for an automotive stock, is absolutely insane. But it had a 7-year consolidation period, and then once it broke out and back tested that 7-year consolidation period, it never looked back, and it went straight vertical. I'm not as familiar with the Amazon chart, but we can see if this consolidated for a while. I mean, yeah, this thing consolidated in a bull flag from 03 to 07, and then it back tested through 08, and then it went on an absolutely massive run. So, going back to XLM, looking at this thing, we're working on completing an inverse head and shoulders here, for which the target on this inverse head and shoulders is north of like $4. You've got this bull flag pattern that I don't even want to give the targets for, because people will be upset for me saying a target so absolutely monstrously high. But I mean, $15-16. I've got targets on XRP to $20, between 10 and 30. And if you look at XLM, I'm very, very bullish on XRP. But then I go and look at the XLM versus XRP chart. So this is XLM's performance versus XRP. It's at its range lows down here in the green. Generally, this is where you want to be a buyer of XLM versus XRP. And you want to be a seller up here at range highs. If we come back to range highs, which we've hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the past, if we go up for a 6th move on the XLM versus XRP ratio, you're looking at 500% outperformance of XLM versus XRP. And I'm already super long and super bullish XRP. So if I'm very bullish and long XRP, I need to be bullish on XLM, because it can potentially do 6x on top of XRP. So if I think XRP is going to 7x from here, to $20, and I think that XLM can 6x on top of XRP, then that's like potentially a 30 to 40x on XLM from where we're at, assuming we get the bull run. Like there's no guarantee. Like this chart hasn't confirmed and broken out yet. I think there's a decent chance that it will. But we could, of course, go up to the top and flag out, and then maybe we get a bear market in 2026, and maybe this is a 2027 coin. I don't know yet. We won't know until we see whether or not this breaks out on this attempt up here. I hope it breaks out. I think it'll break out if Bitcoin goes to 300K plus. And if this breaks out, I think it's going to somewhere between $5 and $15. So yeah, I'm a super big fan of XLM. Also, just like on the fundamental side, I'll take the chart off for now. I'm not going to speculate too much. This is like a very low confidence speculation from me. But I start to wonder a little bit if XLM is going to have some big partnership like X Money or something like that. It'd be really interesting if Elon. There's like a lot of weird connections between Elon and the founder of XLM.
And
Jed and Caleb. So
they're one of the strongest players in RWAs as well. They're already leaps and bounds ahead of XRP. A lot of that has to be is with the fact that XRP was dealing with the court case, and you know what, American-based institutions were hesitant to do any kind of business with Ripple, so they fell behind a lot of the deals and partnerships, which you know XLM took advantage of, you know, because there was a gap in the market because of XRP's blacklisting. Now, you know, you mentioned $20 XRP. I don't think that's that crazy, right? I mean, you're talking about a 9x from where we're at now, and so. You know, you think about that seems kind of realistic, but you start throwing out $15 XLM, you know, you're like, wow, like that seems out there. But let me remind you that XLM is a tiny market cap compared to XRP. And when we saw XRP break out back in November off of the back of the court case being done, right, and over, and the whole litigation stuff being put to bed outside of an appeal at this point, which is also going to come to an end sometime in the relative short future, but it's still an appeal, right? They won the court case, or at least they won the parts of the court case that they were trying to, saying that XRP as a token was not a security. But XRP rallied from 50 cents to 250. That's when XLM also broke out, outperformed XRP, just like you said. And so if you're expecting to get a $20 XRP, like, you best believe XLM's going with it. It is, the charts have showed you once XRP runs, so does XLM. They're both in the same relative category, right? They're both remittance or, you know, institution and central bank based blockchain, right? They want to help money move internationally and also give a second option to central banks and banking through digital assets. Also, they've cornered RWAs. You also got stable coins is a factor. So with that said, XRP's market cap, 160 billion, XLM 11. So you're talking about a 15x away from being the same market cap. I'm not saying they're going to flip them, but if XRP were to grow by a factor of 10, their market cap would be over $1 billion, over $1.5 billion, and that would give you that $20 XRP. And to think that you wouldn't see the XLM go from 11 billion up to that 150 billion, and perhaps and beyond, it's all relative, right? I just don't see a scenario where XRP rallies and XLM doesn't. Not in this current situation. Maybe 4 or 7 years from now, maybe XRP separates itself as the dominant institution, you know, money payment blockchain. Perhaps it wins the narrative. But right now, it's not a clear-cut winner. And so if XRP rallies, which I believe it will, XLM's going with it. It's a smaller market cap. That's why I'm really excited about it, because I think it's going to outperform XRP from this point, at least through this bull market. Moving on. Also, there's a big move out of Cardano. You know, we're big Cardano fans here. This was at 65 cents yesterday. And, you know, we briefly talked about it. I referenced Avalanche, Cardano, and I don't remember what else, but yesterday I was like, guys, like this thing's about to take off. And well, it's moving pretty well, man. Now a big move. There are some pieces of the puzzle missing with Cardano, and you know, maybe Charles Hoskinson jumps down my throat for it, or you know, the community like starts getting all pissed off. But you know, they have a big hole in stable coins, and you know, we do believe that's coming. But I will say, if you were to take the factor that you got the midnight airdrop coming up, you have one of the strongest communities out there in crypto. You have a growing ecosystem of dApps. Now, we haven't seen the super trendy dApp that everyone is downloading and talking about. So I think it's missing that like that dApp that just everyone can't shut up about, like that the Jupiter that's on Solana, or maybe a layer 2 or something of that nature. It's missing a couple things. But my God, the community itself, the direction, I think the fundamentals for Cardano is top tier. Am I drinking the Kool-Aid, Forrest? Or do you like Cardano? I know you've had a little pushback on Cardano, and I'm curious to see where you stand, if you flipped your stance, if you're kind of in the middle, if you're kind of mid. I don't know. What's your thoughts on Cardano?
Cardano's a good cult coin, I think. I think Charles Hoskinson's a good cult leader. And I don't say that as like a mean thing. I think like, you've got Bitcoin and Michael Saylor, you've got Tesla and Elon Musk. You've got Charles Hoskinson and Cardano. I think one of the areas that ETH lacks is like, I just genuinely don't think that Vitalik is a great leader for Ethereum or the Ethereum Foundation. People can get mad at me for that if you like. I like ETH. But I think Cardano has built one of the strongest communities out there, and a big part of that is Charles Hoskinson. So credit where credit's due there. I agree, though. I do think they're lacking in certain areas. I think they're lacking in adoption and use compared to some other blockchains. But I also would never be short Cardano in a bull market, and I'd want to be long Cardano in a bull market, because when everybody's buying and you get these big retail frenzies, retail loves Cardano, and it can outperform everything in a bull market like it did last cycle. So I would not. I'd be very careful with the Cardano hate if I was a Cardano hater, which I'm not. That being said, like my focus right now is kind of on this statist. I call them suit coins. The companies that are trying to work with banks, essentially. The founders are wearing suits, XRP and XLM in particular. You got your Algorand, your HBARs. So that's kind of where my focus has been from a trading perspective, because I just think there's a lot of positive things that are going to be happening in terms of regulation to free up those coins and adoption of those tokens and real world assets and whatnot. But I wouldn't count Cardano out at all in a bull market. I actually think it'll perform extraordinarily well, especially in the later stages of a bull market where things get really frothy.
Yeah, I cannot. I am a holder of Cardano, and I have a pretty sizable position. Definitely not selling. And my thing is I'm not adding to the position right now. And you know what? I'm comfortable with the position I have, or percentage of my portfolio. It's not probably as large as you guys probably think it is, but either way, I just would not be surprised to see Cardano at $15. I don't know if the charts get us there. I don't know if without stable coin, without that tether or that circle, maybe it's not enough fuel. I'm not sure. But still, like, I've seen this thing move, and it hasn't needed much to move historically. And this was something I got exposure to at sub 20 cents last bull market. It absolutely crushed it, man. I absolutely crushed it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of it I had to force sell because we were building the studio, and I was mad I was selling it at $2. And my God, did I make some money? And well, we got a nice studio now, so thank you, Cardano. I did not exit my full position, but I did sell some of it, and that was, thankfully, what helped us build our studio. And I still see the same potential here yet again. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see that big move. Really wouldn't, man. That 10x, 10 cents. We got a 25x basically. You could have bought Cardano at 5 cents. But, I wouldn't be surprised to see another, 20x out of this and get that $15 Cardano. I just genuinely would not surprise me at all. Now, I do think to get that, I would estimate that it's going to fix some of its glaring holes, and there's a community that'll push back and says that everything's fine and the dApps are great and everything, like, there's nothing wrong with it. But I like to push back on that a little bit. I like to say, like, hey, it is missing a couple pieces of puzzle. But with that said, also on There was one other project here. Here, I'll throw it over to you. There's two projects here. This would be a good experience. We'll kind of round it out on this. So we got Avalanche. Also, we got Hedera. These are two of the channel favorites here. Right around the same market cap. You got, Avalanche and Hedera. If you and I don't really have an answer to this because I like both the projects, and so I'm just kind of curious to see what you thought. If you had to put Avalanche and Hedera head to head against one another, is there one that you lean more towards? I don't know if it's maybe fundamental would be a cause to a conclusion. Are you kind of on the fence in the same way that I am, or what's your thoughts on Avalanche Hedera?
Yeah, I mean, the beautiful part about that question is we can just chart them against each other and see which one's stronger. And
I think Hedera's performing real nice. Hedera's definitely outperforming Avalanche on the this year. At least that would be my estimation. I haven't looked at the two compared to each other, but go ahead.
Yeah, so this is AVAX versus HBAR. This is the AVAX versus HBAR chart, meaning if this is going up, AVAX is winning. If this is going down, HBAR is winning. Personally, I'm very biased here. I am very long HBAR. I'm long XRP, XLM, HBAR, and ALGO, kind of in that order in terms of size. XRP being the biggest position, then XLM, then HBAR, and then the smallest being ALGO. This looks honestly like it's about to roll over again if it gets through some of this, what I would refer to as support here. If you're an AVAX fan over HBAR, you kind of want to see this turn into an inverse head and shoulders, right? You want to see this support hold and AVAX start outperforming. That being said, we go to HBAR USD divided by AVAX USD, and we look at this from a perspective, an HBAR perspective. I'd say this looks like a wedge breakout for HBAR, and once we get clearance through this kind of congestion zone here where we have this potential left shoulder, I'd say this is probably going a lot higher against AVAX, like considerably higher. But that's coming from an HBAR bull, not even fundamental bull on HBAR, apart from it just being a suit coin. But if we look at just look at the HBAR chart, and I want more price history on this, if I can go to this one. We look at the HBAR chart. We've got this, this nice flag after a huge pump after the election, into similar to XLM a little bit. Let's draw that all the way down here. Similar to XLM, the potential here to form a very big inverse head and shoulders, right? So I'm not hating on AVAX by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying AVAX is going to underperform. I could be wrong, and maybe AVAX outperforms HBAR, but this kind of inverse head and shoulders is very bullish for HBAR if it plays out. So I would definitely go with HBAR personally, but that's just what I'm already in. But yeah, if, pitting the two against each other, I'm probably leaning HBAR unless unless AVAX just, kicks it into high gear here soon and can start,
I do think that both of them are going to perform very well. And I think that's off the fact that they both have ETFs. They both have, been included in conversations in Congress and also the White House, particularly with the president, the office of the president. And so Avalanche, I think the thing about Avalanche, I'm a big fan of gaming, but we haven't seen gaming pump yet. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe gaming and crypto isn't a thing. I still believe it is, but maybe it comes later. Regardless, Avalanche is very, very, very well suited in RWAs. I do think that RWAs is something that we're already seeing elevate a lot of the top cryptos, and it's the buzz. I mean, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, is constantly talking about RWAs. Dubai and the Emirates are getting behind the RWA narrative, and I think that Avalanche is pretty well suited there. I think Avalanche, Stellar, and you also have Ondo, of course, as a sleeper pick down there. Lower on the market cap, but yeah, I'm pretty bullish on both of those. I actually agree with you. I mean, I'm not exiting my Avalanche position, but there's just a momentum with HBAR, and I see the momentum shifting over to HBAR. I see it shifting over to Hedera. And so on paper, I think that Avalanche has more narrative for the fuel. But there's just something, I've been in this space long enough to know when something just starts getting momentum and it just has a certain buzz to it, and you see the community, it has a vibe. It has kind of that early stages of Solana kind of feel last bull market. And I feel like it's the one that is going to shock everybody. So if I had to pick one to outperform, I do think that Hedera is going to outperform Avalanche, but that's just off of sentiment. If I had to do deep research, I would probably make the case for Avalanche, but so yeah, kind of torn there, but glad to see your perspective there as well. Any other altcoin or anything that you wanted to bring up there on the altcoin cycles today?
No, David texted me, asked me to ask you about Pudgy Penguins token. I don't know if there's some joke there, but no comment.
I'll get a quick thought from you. Last week we were talking about like a similar way, like which one do you think will outperform? It was a similar question as the AVAX Hedera, and it was on Pengu versus Polygon. And I jokingly said, I was like, there's no way. I was like, Polygon's going to outperform Pengu. And well, I've been wrong so far. And what's your knee-jerk reaction? You think, say, 6 months from now, or 6 months from now, which one do you think is going to be in a better position as far as returns? You think it's Pengu, or you think Polygon? Where you stand on this one?
I'm a little salty because I missed Pengu. I've got a small Pengu position. I don't want to say I missed it because I think it's probably going to run a lot more, but it's been pulling 20% days. It's been probably the top performer in the market for the last couple of days. But I actually think Pengu, yeah, the guy who runs that project, Luca Netz, is I think one of the best founders. It's just like similar to Virtual's protocol. I'd say like maybe the only team better than Virtual's protocol might be Luca. The guy's just like, he's got Pudgy Penguin. He's got the #1 NFT project, or what I would call the #1 NFT project. It's like right behind Bored Apes, but like a top 3 NFT project. He's got the Pudgy Penguins in Walmart and on Amazon. It's top selling toy. He's got like millions of TikTok followers on the TikTok account. He's got like millions of Instagram followers on the Pudgy Penguins Instagram account. He's got like one of the only meme coins to get an ETF filing. There's a ETF filing for Pengu. Yeah, I think the guy's just like very, very high tier elite founder, and I think that's just something that's hard to compete with.
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on there. Yeah, I have to admit defeat. I don't see a reversal for the two, but I don't know. I think fundamentally everything, it's the same as the same argument here with the Avalanche, right? On paper, it's like Polygon should be the leader here, should outperform it, but you can't discount the community and the degens. And honestly, the Pengu does have an ETF through Canary Capital, and they had the Pengu or Penguin, Pudgy Penguin at one of the bell ringing ceremonies on Wall Street. So I don't know, man. You can't discount that community and that euphoric vibe you get during a bull market where things just rally that are unexpected. Saw it with Doge. A lot of people wrote that off. They're like, no way. And then they're like, what? And SHIB. And so maybe it's Pengu. I don't know. But that's going to do it for today's show. We will see you next week. David will be back Tuesday. Also, big shout out, super chat from Ashley. She said $2 to do her hair and 2-week notice, something like that. Anyways, you're not quitting, girl. Also, big shout out to all of you that joined today. If you're a first-time viewer, subscribe. Also, go check out our trading show, Sistine Research. It's our trading hub here, and so we encourage you to go check that out. You'll be automatically redirected after this show as well. And until next week, thank you again, Forrest. Gina, Let's go. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, Forrest. And 120, here we come. Let's go.
Cash is Cuvée. Yeah. Sin City, crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin and sin.